Hey, how's it going? Mike from LI Flies Mike, and today we're going to be covering an interesting fly that you'll be able to use to imitate both either ballyhoo and or needlefish, being a useful fly for both striped bass and exotic species like roosterfish. And it's a very simple fly to tie as well. As always, the full list of materials will be down in the description below. So starting off, we have a Gamakatsu SL12S in size 4-aught here. I'm going to be using some Danville 210 denier flat wax nylon. That's my preferred thread, but you could obviously use some monofilament thread if you'd like. Now starting off here, we're going to give a little bit of support for the rear section of the fly. We're going to take a pretty healthy portion of bucktail, not too much, and just tie it on here around the hook point. This is going to provide some support for the fly, but also kind of give us a little bit of width to the belly of the fly. So next up, this is a new material on the channel, and I ended up picking this up to try and tie another fly, but I found out it's actually really nice material to work with. We're definitely going to have to cover it some more on the channel. It's the MFC or Montana Fly Co. Scales and Tails synthetic material. So it's kind of very similar to like Steve Farrar fiber, if you will, but it's slightly crinklier, I guess you could say, and it's quite long as well. You get quite a lot of material in the pack. So what we're going to be doing here is we're essentially just going to be taking some material and folding it in half and tying it on. And you could see just by taking this, we could easily get a nice taper. We could easily get a nice profile of a needlefish or ballyhoo, for instance. But we're going to take it a step farther. We're going to take a small bunch of material here and fold it in half and cut it because it's too long. And that way we're going to get a short section we're going to tie on first. Again, to kind of help give us a nice transition, because the middle of the ballyhoo, the needlefish, is where it's going to be the widest. So we're just going to take a small amount here and tie this in using a V-tie. We've covered it many times on the channel. It's one of my favorite techniques in fly tying. So by taking this material and tying it in just right in front of where we tied the bucktail, we'll be able to fold the scales and tails back and give us a nice little platform for the longer material we're tying on here. So speaking of which, we're taking a pretty healthy section of MFC here. This is going to be the white for the body or the belly of the fly. And we don't need to necessarily worry about the underside. All of the material is going to be tied on top. So just pulling these scales and tails out of the package here. And again, you could use other synthetics if you'd like. We're going to go ahead and get ready to V-tie this here. But what we're going to do is we're going to tie the material in the middle further up towards the hook eye. And that way we can kind of build up the long beak of the fly, if you will. The majority of the hook shank is going to essentially be the beak or the nose of the bait. So by taking our MFC scales and tails here, the white section, we're going to tie it right in the middle and essentially fold it back and do a long V-tie here. You can slightly offset the material left or right to kind of build up a slight amount of width. We are going for a very thin profile though with this bait. So a little tip here, because we are using quite a long amount of material with the scale and tail, taking a small amount of either liquid fusion or Softex and applying it inside of the scales and tails, going back behind the bend of the hook, will help give us a spine to the fly. This is going to prevent it from fouling. And it dries fairly quickly, the liquid fusion, which is what I recommend, so it's quite easy to work with. So next we're going to take some of this turquoise color here. You could use blue, green, and again you could change this and just tie other baitfish flies with it by adjusting the shape and profile. But we're going to take this nice kind of bluish green turquoise color here and essentially just tying it right in front of where the white was. I had a little bit of space. If you did tie it up to the hook eye, don't worry, you can just always tie it on top. And just like last time, I'm going to take my thread here, being careful not to have the material going too far to the side. We do want this blue to essentially be focused more so on the top. But part of the V-tie is we do want it to be kind of slightly offset to either side here. You can see by starting our V-tie further up on the fly towards the hook eye, now we have this nice profile that we're going for when it comes to a ballyhoo, a needlefish, or any sort of baitfish with an elongated front section. And while wrapping our thread here in this front section, just trying to be certain to keep that blue focused on top and not having it drift off to the sides. It'll be easier for the colors of the fly in general. If you're using mono, it's nice because it won't cover up the color on the material on the top. I don't necessarily mind using the white thread here though. So we're going to throw a whip finish on this, and then I'm just going to take my Copic marker or a Sharpie here. This is a nice olive color. I'm just going to apply some coloring and kind of blend it in with the sides. Now taking some super glue here, we're going to apply our stick-on eyes. I like using super glue because it ensures that the eyes adhere properly, and then when you cover it with the glue or the UV resin, epoxy, whatever you're using, it won't lift off and move around on you. So it's important that we take these eyes and place them pretty far back. We don't want to go too far back to where they're not actually on the hook shank. You do want them attached to the hook shank, but we are using the eyes to essentially kind of help stiffen up that rear section and prevent it from fouling. And after making sure the eyes are even and the fly is not offset here, we'll get ready to glue it. Real quick though, I forgot I have a blue Sharpie so we can actually blend the blue and the olive and give us this nice natural color that we're looking for to match our synthetic material. But again, don't feel afraid to just leave it as a white head, for instance, with your thread, because most of these fish are quite silver and light in color, and their beaks are quite light in color as well. So now taking some medium solar res here, some UV resin, I'm going to apply a pretty healthy amount here. It's very important you don't ever apply too much. Always work with what you're comfortable with. If you do end up applying too much resin, not only will it have the tendency to drip, you may also have a hard time curing the fly with too much resin, as it may either try to run on you or it may not cure all the way through. So I like to build up my coats here, but we are able to essentially get one nice coat of medium resin here. I'm going to take my time, make sure that it's spread evenly around the beak of the fly, as well as making sure that it is fully covering the stick-on eyes as well. It's important to have those stick-on eyes be fully covered in the resin, making sure you have a nice contact with the UV resin to the eyes and material around it. So you can give it a couple seconds here while you spin your vise and it'll naturally kind of smooth out, giving you a nice smooth UV body. But we're going to take our UV light here and hit the fly. Now one thing to note is you generally don't want to have your light this close. This is my old battery powered light, which I forgot where my newer rechargeable light one is, so make sure you keep that light at least a couple inches away from the fly when you're curing. So now after curing our first medium coat, I'm just going to take some thin resin here, more solar res, and we're just going to apply a nice thin coat. The thin resin will naturally spread and fill out any gaps or any imperfections in our UV resin. That's why I like starting with a thick or medium resin and then finishing it off with a thin. So now we can hit the fly with the light one more time here, making sure that we cure the resin evenly, moving the fly as we cure the resin so that way it doesn't overheat. If you focus the light on one area too often, it'll tend to overheat and possibly turn yellow on you. Giving it a quick trim here, and now we can take a look. The profile on the fly is pretty much dead on when it comes to imitating either Ballyhoo or Needlefish. With Needlefish, you can either tend to make them a little bit longer. The Ballyhoo flies here we tied for the guys going down to Baja, Mexico that were catching mahi-mahi and roosterfish. But you could easily adapt this fly to imitate something like the Needlefish up here in the Northeast that striped bass will often target in the back bays or in the surf. And of course, needlefish flies, ballyhoo flies, things like that are always pretty popular when it comes to fishing in warmer waters where there's barracuda and other species like that. So it's a great fly to learn how to tie and have in your arsenal. Probably make a great teaser fishing in front of a plug as well. And in the water here, The MFC Scales and Tails, such a fantastic material. Again, it's very similar to other synthetics we use, but the cost is really good and the amount of material you get is great. It has some nice flash blended in, so we're definitely going to have to feature this material some more on the channel and possibly cover it a little bit more in depth. If you'd like to see that, make sure you let me know. Well, thank you so much again for watching, and thank you so much to everybody that supports the channel here, all of our Twitch subs, all of our YouTube members, and everyone that just drops a sub here and watches the videos. We can't thank you enough, and we couldn't do it without you folks. And thank you so much, everybody. We hit 5,000 subs here on YouTube. Again, couldn't do it without you folks. We have tons of different fly tying and fly fishing videos here on the channel for you to check out, as well as live fly tying streams on Friday nights. Well, thanks again for watching, and thank you again to everyone that supports the channel here. Have a great rest of your summer out there fishing. We'll be focusing on some fishing topics here soon. And as always, tight lines.